Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Geezerology. We have a full card today. Marissa is joining us with Bob up in Kansas City. Dan is back with us in St. Louis after taking a well-deserved vacation.
That's putting it one way.
And as usual, I'm here in South Florida. Okay, we're going to do something a little different today. About a week ago, 10 days ago, Bob told me that Marissa was going to see Dermot Kennedy in concert. Dermot is a guy that we talked about his album with Marissa back in April. And so my immediate reaction, I said, Bob, I said, well, you should go too. And then you and Marissa can come on and we'll record you guys doing a concert review. Bob said, that's a great idea. So Marissa pulled a couple strings and got her dad a ticket and took her to see Dermot Kennedy. And that was Saturday night. This is, we're doing this on Sunday. So it was last night, but this will actually go up on YouTube on Wednesday. So this was happened Saturday night, August the 7th. And these two went to the concert, and Dan and I are going to sit back and we're going to listen to Bob and Marissa talk about the concert they went to last night. Bob, take it over, buddy.
Okay. Well, I got to comment on a few things right up the get-go. I can state with pretty much authority, I was the oldest person in the crowd. A lot of man buns and skinny jeans around. I went to this show with some trepidation, not only about the age thing and knowing I was going to be in a crowd of millennials, but when we had listened to Dermot Kennedy's music at Marissa's suggestion, I really liked the guy's voice. I loved his songwriting. The musical accompaniment I was kind of so-so with. So I was really expecting to kind of be bored at this show. And it was one of those, yeah, I'm going to go with my daughter type thing to be a dutiful dad and stuff and just to see what this is like. But I wasn't expecting much. And I am happy to admit that I was blown out of my seat. Dermot Kennedy and his band was awesome. And it was not at all what I was expecting. They were much heavier on stage, great stage presence. They came out and with their first couple songs, just rocked the house. And an impressive light show. Visually, the show was stunning. Kennedy took center stage, and then he had three backup musicians.
Well, describe the venue.
It's the Uptown Theater, downtown Kansas City. A beautiful old ornate theater. And I believe it started out life as one of those old fashioned ornate movie houses. So it's a beautiful interior. Seats about 1,700 people. So it's kind of an intimate setting.
That is small. Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it may seat more than that, but it's no more than 2,000. And it's one of the kind of things where even if you're up in the upper tiers, there's not a bad seat in the house, Yeah, so it's really beautiful inside. Kennedy took center stage, and then his three backing musicians, each one of them was on a separate riser at the back of the stage. And so they wound up being superimposed against this rear projection of lights and a really stunning graphics show that went with each song. And so they were silhouetted against that and had a lot of light shows and graphics and stuff that could have easily come, from the psychedelic era. And the musical accompaniment was a little outside of what I'm normally used to. Kennedy, from time to time, would play guitar, did acoustic and electric. And the times that he didn't pick up a guitar, he was backed by a bass player, keyboards, and drums. And the bass player also doubled on a little mini synthesizer type thing. So it wasn't always, guitar-driven music, but very energetic stuff. And it was a huge contrast to what he did in the studio. And in fact, they bordered on the edge of prog rock stuff. It was I was just astounded by the music. And if this guy ever releases a live album, it's going in my collection. So
Wow.
it was just completely opposite of what I was expecting. I was really impressed.
Well, this is good. The old man learned a couple of new tricks last
Yes,
night.
he did. And I will have to say, these millennials know how to rock. So,
Marissa.
anyway, that was my take on it, and I'm really thrilled that I went. I think it was and I got a kick out of sitting next to my daughter, and I mean, she's just bopping in that chair and having a great time. And Kansas City's back under a mask mandate, so everybody going into the venue had a mask on. Of course, we had quite a few people who took them off after they got inside. But anyway, I'm over here watching my daughter just having a great time, and she's bopping in the chair and singing along, and she's singing, and of course she knew every song, and she's singing along and singing so forcefully the mask kept falling off her face, and you had to pull it back up. So I got a kick out of watching her. So that was also neat. So it not only was a great musical experience, it was a good father-daughter bonding thing. So.
Yeah, it was a total blast. I had found out that Dermot was coming into town, and I had texted my dad, and I originally was just going to go alone because I didn't have anyone to go with. And my dad had suggested, I now know upon your request and suggestion as well, and turned out to be awesome. And I had thought about my dad kind of in the similar situation of him being like probably the oldest gentleman there. And I had gotten just floor like standing room seats for myself, just one. And so upon my dad coming, I decided to get balcony seats. And this theater is really special to me because it's the first secular music show that I ever went to when I was a kid or a youth. And so it was just really special. And I got to be up there with my dad. And the first two acts were kind of not at all my dad's taste. So I had like low-key anxiety about, oh man, my dad's not going to like this. And he's just going to be sitting here next to me. And I'm going to just be like so excited. But as soon as Dermot came onto stage, and I have a video of the opening, like the very first song there, and I'm sure you can share it. But my dad had his phone out and immediately put it down, and I saw him just like move his head forward at the first like notes playing, and like that was such like excitement for me because he was drawn in immediately. And over and over again I see my dad just like inching forward over looking just like immersed in the music that was coming, and he's just like, Marissa, I dig this, I like this. And it was the best experience. I had high expectations because I love his music. And what I like most about Dermot is his ability to really take each song and change that song to a different setting and a different venue and a different crowd, right? You saw that with the album that you guys had both listened to, which is a lot different than what we saw live. And I think that he really caters to the audience in which he's trying to play for. And it was spectacular. I cried. I was so excited. Keeping that mask up was so hard because I was singing so loud, and then my voice just like kept going down. And there was one point where my mask came down, and I was like, like, screw it, I don't care. And I look over my dad, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, oh yeah. And I put it back up real quick. It was a great time.
Did he play his all of his favorite, all of his crowd favorites?
Oh, he sure did. Yeah. There was one song I wish he would have done, but he did. He came back on for an encore. And like what was really neat was the light show and the show, like the aesthetic of it really like from start to finish concluded the show. And so like from the very first song that he performed, it had this like special light show, and then the very last song had a conclusion to that. So it was literally like we were watching a story, we were watching a performance that had a beginning and an end, which was just spectacular when you think about watching a live show, you know.
Right.
Really thought of and really put together.
Right. Now, the open, you said there were two opening acts. I know there was one, Bishop Briggs is her name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, how was she?
She had a lot of energy, which was really great. She really owned the stage. She was really fun to watch. But I think my dad and I aligned on this same thought, where we really couldn't hear what she was saying in singing, which was kind of a bummer, because I didn't even associate who she was until her like hit song The River. And then I realized, okay, then I know her songs. I started to think back, I was like, okay, I really couldn't understand the speech part of that, of her performance was not up to par, especially coming before Dermot, which was fantastic. His enunciation.
And then Dermot's vocals were crystal clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Okay. So she,
Mhm.
yeah, she probably had some sort of problem with her sound setup or something.
Well, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard through the decades that the opening acts, they intentionally don't give them as much clarity as they do the star, because they don't want opening acts to blow away anybody else. I don't know if that's true or not. My problem with her was not knowing her music. I wasn't familiar with anything she did, and I couldn't understand anything she was singing. So that kind of, lessened her impact. There was, and like I said, the only thing I knew by her was The River, because I had watched that on YouTube right before we went to the show. So that song I was familiar with and I really liked. And there was another song about halfway through her set that I really liked. I don't know what it's called, because like I said, I really don't know her music. Had I been familiar with her music and knew the lyrics she was singing, I probably would have enjoyed it quite a bit more.
She was good at being with the crowd.
Yeah. And then the initial act was sort of a local performer out of Kansas, Anna Hamilton, I think her name was. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess she's, I looked her up real quickly on the internet while we were there, and she's got some music out. But we came in the kind of the middle of her performance, so she only did about 2 or 3 songs while we were there. Oh. And yeah, she was accompanied by a guy on acoustic guitar, so she didn't do much for me one way or the other.
Yeah, I just quickly looked up Anna Hamilton. Yeah, she does have a presence, so it's not like not like she's totally unknown. That struck me when you said when she was performing, you looked her up on the internet. It's like, golly, I haven't been to a concert proper in a long damn time. I've never been to a concert where I had the ability to look something up on the internet. Wow.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second, Bob. You said you're at the concert. This was the first or second act, the lady singer.
Well, there were 3 acts. The very first one was Anna Hamilton, who's like, she's from somewhere over in Kansas. And then the second act was an Irish singer-songwriter named Bishop Briggs. And then the headliner was Dermot Kennedy, who's also Irish.
Yeah, so you had the presence of mind during the concert to actually go on the web and look it up.
Well, I mean, when we there was some confusion on my mind, because the tickets we had said the show started at 8. The web page for the venue said 7, but we had planned to go out to dinner, so we got there a little before 8. And when we were seated, this Anna Hamilton was already on stage singing. So I thought she was Bishop Briggs, because I didn't know there was going to be a third act. And I was sitting there listening to her, and like I said, I had gone on YouTube and looked up Bishop Briggs a little bit, and I was sitting thinking, like, this doesn't really look like her,
Well, it's
so
weird.
Yeah, and then I think before she did her last song, she mentioned her name of Anna Hamilton and that she was from Kansas. So that's when I looked her up, and I said, oh, okay, this is not Bishop Briggs, So that cleared up the confusion in my mind.
But yeah, because we had walked in, and I mean, it was a pretty full house. Like when we walked in there, and she was playing, and I was a little bit confused because don't know who Bishop Briggs is. And it almost looked like a high school like talent show because it was just like kind of one spotlight on like a girl singing with an acoustic guitar, and I'm just like, oh man, like who is this? So like my dad and I at that moment, and then she said her name was Anna Hamilton, and we were both like, who is that? Like what? So my dad, yeah, it was a moment of mindfulness. My dad was like, who is this? And this gentleman behind us kept talking, so it was hard for us to even get into like the girl singing. And luckily I had my big tall dad here with me, and I'm like, Dad, like this guy, I cannot stand his voice, it's just going nonstop, and I'm just so mad. I was getting so irritated, but my dad, like we like moved seats, and then like we realized that Dermot was about to come on, and I was like, let's move to the middle. And my dad turns around and tells this young man like, hey, can you not talk during the show? And he's like, I'll try. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I have my dad here, because I would have not done
it. You had your bodyguard with you.
Yeah,
but I'm thinking
that's the only way to go to a concert. Take your bodyguard with you.
Yeah, but here, I'm thinking this young guy could probably kick my butt all over the place.
Well, you're a pretty big dude. It's like, just the fear factor alone is,
nothing else.
The intimidation factor. Yeah.
The only bad point of Kennedy's show, and Marissa's going to have to help me out here because I didn't know the song, but Kennedy did an a cappella song that was really moving. And guy's got a great voice. So he's doing this a cappella song. And do you know the song, Marissa?
I'm trying to find it. You just keep telling the story.
So anyway, and it's really, really moving. And unfortunately, the people in the venue lived up to our Cowtown image, because he's doing this incredibly moving a cappella song, and every once in a while you hear some yahoo whooping or whatever, and it's like, guys, just shut up and listen to this guy sing. And I'm sitting there really getting into his a cappella performance, and I actually had my eyes closed, just letting it soak in. And then you'd hear some idiot "Yay!" right in the middle of it, and it's just, and it would break the concentration. Then I'd have to get back into it. And it wasn't Kennedy's fault, it was just the Kansas City.
That's been an issue at concerts since the beginning of time, though. Anytime you go in a public place, you're going to have a yahoo.
Yeah, the song was The Corner, and what was interesting about the song and the like expectation set was he had gotten very rowdy with I think like 4 songs into his show, and this is when he did that a cappella moment, and he had put away his guitar and he said, hey guys, you're not going to like this, but we're going to be very like, we're going to have a moment. So he was like trying to set this tone, like that this, and also had told a story behind the song and said, it's going to be me singing. I want you to go ahead and sing this part, it's the end of the song. And so my dad and I, like he had said, like it was, I have never been to a show where someone was like, oh, we're going to have a moment here,
Right.
But I was so excited to, and all, when he would go through his like, just his voice was so beautiful. And then I'd hear like Kelly beside me just go whoop, and I'm just like, why? Like why would you just whoop? Like I was so excited to have that moment, and just, yeah, I guess you're right though. I guess that happens at every concert, but oh gosh, Kansas City people sometimes.
Yeah, and
that's like something we're known for, is like being like disruptive in shows and like gatherings.
That's everywhere. That's not just Kansas City.
The tour is called the Better Days Tour, and he debuted a new song called Better Days, which was a great tune. And and one of the things I liked about him is that on several of his songs, he actually did kind of a monologue about why and how he wrote the song, and what was the inspiration for it. And Better Days came out of the last year and a half or so or more that we've dealt with all of the crises going on around the world and everything. So it was a good tune. And
I recall that back in April when we did this, and Marissa introduced Bob and I to Dermot Kennedy, and then Bob and I listened to his one album. I think he's only released one album. We listened to it heading into the video, and I think we both kind of had the same reaction, that we both thought the guy had a heck of a voice. He's a really good singer, and like the songwriting, but Bob and I think we're both turned off a little bit by the heavy use of electronica and studio work and everything like that. And I do remember that, but I liked him enough. I liked his voice enough, and I thought there was a potential enough. I remember, like, going on a YouTube dive after we recorded that video and looking for some of his things. I found a few videos where he did like an NPR Tiny Desk concert, and actually was like did a TV show or something like that where it was just him and a band, and I thought he was really good. He was really good in that setting. I like that a lot more than I liked that album that I listened to. Yeah. And I listened to a few tunes off of Bishop Briggs' debut album. She's had 2 albums. I listened to a few tunes off of her debut, and they're, I thought they were okay, but it just real heavy on the electronica, and
Marissa, why don't you tell everybody about the thing you were telling me about, where Dermot's going across the country and doing videos of places that he's visiting.
Well, yeah. So I don't know if it's so much the places that he's visiting, but I think a few months before he just got done with this, he has a YouTube channel where when he landed in the United States, he wanted to experience the US. So he rented a Jeep, and he's going across the United States in this Jeep and like visiting different spots around the country. I think this was before his tour though. So I think it's on YouTube now. But it's really awesome to see him in the States and like see him. I'm very much into like hiking and like being in nature, and to see like someone that I love his music and walk across US is pretty neat. So I'd encourage you to check it out. It's on YouTube. I think that he has a YouTube channel. I don't know too much about it though, when it started or anything.
He's basically, are you saying he basically was just playing tourist in the United States and
Yep.
video? Yeah,
that's pretty, and I think it's really neat.
I'll look it up. Yeah, I'll check that out.
I think he's got one where he was at Joshua Tree, out in California.
Yeah, it was cool. He was on, I checked his Instagram yesterday night, and it was neat. He was walking around the streets of Kansas City, and I had like paused on the video to see the cross streets that he was at, like a creep, like like, oh my gosh, where did you walk at, but it's really cool to see like someone that you see perform for hundreds of people. Right. And this is the same night that Garth Brooks was playing in Kansas City, so it was a really fun, like, drastic difference in like seeing my friends going to Garth Brooks and like, Arrowhead Stadium with thousands and thousands of people, and I'm sitting here crying in this like old like theater, like seeing this gentleman play.
I so miss those little small theaters, man. It's like, when I was a kid, before I left, and just after I was at high school, I mean, I went to tons of those shows at the little Ambassador Theater, Fox Theater. St. Louis had 3 or 4 of those kind of places, and man, those things are great to see concerts in. Now here in South Florida, everything that comes to town is a classic rock act playing at Hard Rock Stadium. It's just not the same.
Uptown Theater is an experience going into it, because it's, you're walking into old Kansas City and seeing old architecture, and it's this intimate, beautiful moment where you see like light lanterns, the side of where it's a beautiful, beautiful place.
If I could, I'd just interject 2 cents. I was not familiar with Dermot Kennedy's music before, but I did manage to do a quick YouTube thing real early this morning, and it was the Red Rocks thing, Bob, that you had mentioned, and I guess he was doing this in concert with U2, but before he started his own song, he did like a spoken word of "The Streets Have No Name," and then but then he played a couple songs on acoustic guitar, and I was really impressed by his voice, because I thought I don't know who this guy is. I don't like, so to give it a fair shot, I was impressed by his voice. He's got a pretty good range and tone, and yeah, I think I'll
And I
listen.
think we all had that same reaction at different times. Was that this guy had a heck of a voice.
Yeah, I just think a lot of quality voices around contemporary music are sort of hard to find, and he has that, and of course, coming from a long line of Irish vocalists, from Van Morrison and U2 and Jim Morrison, and so. But yeah, it was for me a pleasant surprise, Marissa.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that.
And I would recommend, if he comes anywhere near where you guys are, I would recommend going to the show. And if he does what he did in Kansas City, I think you'd really, really enjoy it. I was super impressed.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, anything else?
Other than I can say, I've been to the Uptown before. I saw John Fogerty there, and I just want to reemphasize, it is a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah, I
really
miss
neat
those
venue.
places.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I say, here in South Florida, the only things we have are stadium concerts, or you go into a little dive bar, or
And
so.
So it was really neat to be sitting there, with 1,700 people as opposed to 58,000 at Arrowhead for Garth Brooks, which in these days and times could also wind up being a super spreader. So
Yeah. Well, and it's good. It's good to hear. It's good to hear that that contemporary artists are still playing venues like that. That's good to hear. That keep that spirit alive, man.
Absolutely.
Because that's the best. That's the best. Going to one of those old movie theaters, or just a little opera house to see some music. You can't beat it. You can't beat it. Okay, well, Marissa, thanks for coming on and telling us about that. Thanks for taking your dad with you to hear this. Yeah, that was good to hear both of you guys talk about that. That was fun. Turned out exactly as fun as I thought it would be. So, okay, gang. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time at Geezerology. So long, everybody.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Later.